Brand new week, brand new business conversations, not so brand new faces. My name is Simba Elijah Charles Kiage. You are watching Metropole Television. This is your 24/7 business channel in Eastern Central Africa. There are a lot of conversations that we have on the table this week, including putting into proper context the 2020 economic survey by the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics. After a 4-month delay, we do have that report, and this morning, that's exactly what we're going to table. But that aside now, what is going on in the country right now? Two things, or three, depending on the way that you're looking at it. Number one, coronavirus pandemic, an ongoing concern. The only question I'm asking you this morning is that have you been vaccinated? If not, what are you waiting for? Because indeed, you need to be on that list regardless. Number two, we are talking about the impending general elections after the ruling on the BBI report. And number three, the national drought, which is now a national disaster. And that's where we begin from this morning. Now, last week, President Uhuru Kenyatta declared the drought currently being experienced in many parts of the country a national disaster. Now, this latest declaration came just a month after the National Drought Management Authority, NDMA, estimated that about 2.1 million Kenyans faced acute food shortage with an immediate need for help in the next 6 months, with a big jump from the 1.4 million Kenyans the government estimated in April that faced hunger due to the drought and the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. While acknowledging and welcoming the president's pronouncement, the Route to Food Alliance, which is a movement of men and women championing for the realization of the rights of food as espoused in Article 43 of the Constitution of Kenya, is alarmed by recent press reports that have highlighted the plight of thousands of Kenyans at risk of starvation. However, they have now put the government on the spot for allowing the situation to be cyclical and believe that the steps haven't been taken to put an end to it. Just before we introduce the guest who's joining us into the studio this morning to put some proper perspective onto where we are, does our government and the continent in general understand why we need to end this disaster? Let's listen in to the President Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta on exactly where he thinks food safety in the country and the continent at large should be.
This 2021 summit offers an opportune moment for all our nations to put our thoughts together, accelerate action, and make commitments to deliver resilient food systems for our continent and our people. We've put in place various measures, including programs for food and crop diversification. We have an e-voucher program that supports staple crop farming, and as well as farmers in the livestock and dairy value chain as well. We've also put in place programs that encourage the growth of indigenous food crops such as sorghum, millet, and cassava. And we're also encouraging people to embrace the growth and consumption of indigenous vegetables, another more nutritious other than conventional vegetables. And this, I believe, is very critical, especially for all those of us in arid and semi-arid areas. We've also been moving towards flour blending and flour fortification policies that are encouraging millers to blend our staple maize flour with either cassava, millet, and beans and other type of crops as well.
All right. So he does understand that this is a situation that is going on or has been going on in the continent and especially in this country. All right, joining us this morning, therefore, to highlight the missteps from the government that have continually put the country in the holds of food shortage and hunger. We are joined by Edith Kimani, who's a member Route to Food. Edith, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me, Simba.
Anytime. Welcome to Metropole Television. That's where we start from. You hear the president speak, he knows, and on paper, you can hear he's got the plan. So that's what we begin from, Edith. How hard or easy is it to solve the food shortage in the country, going by what the president is saying, or going by exactly the country knowing that year in, year out, we have to get to a place where we're saying over 2 million Kenyans are facing starvation in the country?
Thank you for that question. I think that the government has a responsibility
Yes.
to protect the human right of Kenyans to access food.
Yes.
And the government has also ratified the Sustainable Development Goal number 2,
Yes.
which states that, you know, we are supposed to, by 2030, end hunger. We are supposed to ensure that everyone has adequate food nutrition and ramp up sustainable agricultural practices.
Yes.
And so I believe that the government, what it needs to do is not lay down an emergency plan. It needs to have a sustainable plan such that next year we don't declare another state of emergency in this country. We don't declare another national disaster in terms of drought.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I like what you're saying, that they have laid down the plan. But let's not forget, 2030, Edith, is just what? 8 years from now.
Yeah.
And we've been talking about this before then. I mean, you and I live in this country. We do know last year we declared it a disaster. Last year, but 1, we declared it as a disaster. Last year, but 2, we did declare it a disaster. I mean, I'll go back again. I'll keep on mentioning those years.
Yeah.
So what is not going on then? Is it the government that has failed? Because it looks like they have a plan.
The greatest way to measure the commitment of
Yes.
the government towards this is to look at how much they allocate in the
Yes.
budget.
Yes.
And so if they allocate less than 4% of the budget to feeding the citizens, yet food is not just a human right, it's a basic need. We need it for sustenance. Are we then ensuring that our plans are sustainable? I don't think so.
So it looks as if it's a deliberate inability for the government to fulfill that. Let's move on to the next one, Edith, as we think about that as well. So when we contextualize the hunger situation in the country or the continent, is this a new problem, or it's something that has existed in this country and the continent at large?
Hunger is not a new problem.
Yes.
Not in this country, not in this continent, not in the world. There have been people that have been hungry for years.
Yes.
And it is sad that we allow that to continue. It's actually paradoxical. As soon as they announced 1 billion people hungry in the world, there was 1.6 billion people obese. I think it's a problem that we must prioritize. We must get to the bottom of it.
Yes.
Yes.
Now, one of the issues that you have highlighted as the route to food is exactly that critical area you mentioned, that time in, time out, the government keeps on spending less than 4% of its national budget in agriculture and also investing in food safety in this country. I know you've written to them, you've moved to actually talk to the government on this. What is the sort of response and feeling you're getting from the government around this critical area?
You know, for citizens to feel defeated
Yes.
could be fine, but for the government to feel defeated, because that's the sense, is not allowed, because they are the policy makers.
Isn't it? Is there a sense of defeat from the government, or is there a sense of not, where do you put it, Edith? Because the government cannot be defeated. You are the policy maker.
Yes.
If you deliberate towards achieving it, you can achieve it, isn't it? So is it a sense of we've not seen the urgency, but we're very fast to declare a state of emergency, especially when 2.9 now are facing starvation?
I think we need to speak solutions.
Yes.
I think we need to look at our policies And we need to ask, who does these policies favor?
Yes.
Do the policies favor the people? Do they work? And if they don't work, can we change them?
Yes.
So we really need to get to the bottom of this. We need to ask the hard questions. We need to talk to the people and
Yes.
allow people to participate in sharing their views and really hear the problem from the people that feel it. And so one of the first people to talk to, I would suggest, is farmers.
Yes.
Because they are the people that grow the food. They understand the issues that they face in, year out, whether it's, weather and lack of access to adequate water supply, whether it is that they do not have good seed. Can we listen to the people that matter?
Yes.
Because they are the people that produce the food to, the entire citizenry. And again, it's almost a paradox that they are the people that are most hungry. How can you produce the food yet be hungry?
Isn't it? It's quite in a deep contrast. Oh, let's look at another area that I've seen get mentioned in some of your reports. You're saying that when it comes to investing in smallholder producers and local agroecological food systems, there seems to be a disconnect. Yet, we've seen some focus from this government on large-scale farming in this country. Edith, can you give us a context this morning? We do know that small-scale farmers in this country hold the bigger chunk to our food basket. But then again, it seems as if the focus would be on large-scale farmers in this country. Is that where we're getting it wrong?
Yeah, that's actually where we're getting it wrong.
Yes.
Because smallholder farmers, they hold the key to our food basket, right?
Yes, yes.
And so if the problem is hunger, then let's solve the problem of hunger first before we look at exports, because that's what the large-scale farmers focus on.
Yes. Yes. And you think, what does it become difficult then for the government to sort of break down these small farmers into a unit they can handle? Is that where the problem begins?
I believe not. I believe
Yes.
that it's not difficult
Yes.
to attempt to hear the needs of the small-scale farmers.
Yes.
Because these are needs that they cry out loud for. If we only listened, and the government at national level
Yes.
could be far removed from the farmers, but this is a function that has been devolved to local
Yes,
government.
yes.
And so if we only listened, perhaps we would get to the root of the solution.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
So for somebody listening new this morning, Edith, what are some of these obligations that you're imposing on the Kenyan government just to start achieving on a smaller scale as we approach 2030? Because it doesn't look like it's very far away from us.
I agree with you that 2030 is not far away, and we have to confront the reality that perhaps if we continue in this trajectory, we might not be able
Yes.
to achieve the goals that we had set for ourselves, which is sad, right? And so if we want to get to the bottom of this, perhaps one of the first ways to think about it is, first of all, coordination. How can we coordinate national and local? I hear the president loud and clear when he says he has a plan.
Yes.
And we welcome this plan.
Yes.
But let us coordinate. Let us hear that there's a coordination between national and local. Let us hear that, counties are supporting their farmers. Let us hear that transportation of food to markets does not have barriers along
Yes.
the way.
Yes.
Let us hear that, processing is acceptable for small-scale farmers. We don't see that. So that's one of the first ways. Secondly, let us have farmer-centered policies. Let us listen to the farmers who produce our food as we, chart out policies for this country. And let us listen to their problems and try and craft solutions that would work for them. Third thing is, let us work with the SME people so that we ensure that there's access to food, because there's excess of food in this country, yet
Yes.
people are hungry. So how can we ensure access? Let's work with the people that distribute this food and ensure that we are removing the barriers along the way, such that everyone gets some physical access to food.
Yes. When you speak to the farmers in this country, because I know that's exactly where your connection point is when it comes to food production and supply in the country, do they feel there's a disconnect from some of these policies that the government is coming up to exactly what it is that they need on the ground to produce this food?
Absolutely. You know, let's speak about seed for once.
Yes.
So in this country, it's illegal to buy food, seed that has not been certified. But do the farmers have access to the correct seed? Do they have access to the correct, pesticides, that are not going to harm their land,
Yes.
that are not going to spoil their soil? There's almost a disconnect between what the government expects of them and what they can access in the rural areas. So let us amp our budgetary allocations for the rural areas so that even the farmer can be able to have some money in the pocket, that they can be able to purchase the correct seed, purchase the correct additives for this production.
Yes.
Yeah.
So yes, we're right in the middle of a national disaster, and we saw it coming. We knew it was going to be here, especially from what you're saying this morning. I think you saw it a long time ago, even before we in the media actually started saying it. Fine. But have we made any advancements in it? When you look at the national landscape, have we made any advancements, especially when it comes to fighting this national disaster that is now perennial?
Advancements can be positive and negative, right?
It could be, yes.
Yes. So let us, since we are in the middle of a disaster,
Yes.
let's fight together.
Yes.
I think that the government providing emergency or relief food is something, right?
It is something.
It is something.
And it is, I want to ask you this, since we're talking about that relief. And this time around, they're focusing more on cash
Yep.
as opposed to the food itself. Do you think that splashing cash at this problem can actually start to give out proper solutions as opposed to food? Would you rather, Edith, that we use this money that we're dispersing now to these needy families to develop some of these policies we're talking about here this morning?
I would rather the people get some sort of food.
Yes.
Those that are hungry now, let's have them get food.
Yes.
But the only sustainable way for them to get food is to also solve policy for the future, for tomorrow,
Yes,
right?
yes.
So emergency relief is welcome. It's a step in the right direction.
Yes.
But let us not forget to lay our ground straight where it matters. Let us put our money where our mouths are.
Yes.
And so, let us focus on the policy. Let us not forget that this is going to be a problem next year.
Yes.
Yes.
All right, so let's look at it again. I mean, from what you're saying this morning, does it give you confidence that indeed we're going to find a solution to the food shortage in this country right now? I mean, as we sit now, even this current budget has not addressed this 4% that you again, in your report again, even last year, you said, well, we cannot spend less than 4% of the national budget in addressing food security in this country. It has not been done again, Edith, in this current financial year. And we don't expect that the next one, again, they're going to spend more than this 4% we're talking about here, because we have already started seeing those projections.
Yep.
Is that a bleak future from what you said in this morning? Anybody who's listening to you, are you sort of saying, we can't do it because I do not think they felt the need to impact these policies through the financial document that we get at the start of each year?
And that is why I think it's an opportune time, for Kenyans to raise their voices.
Yes.
I think next year is an electioneering year. It's a really, really good time. It's as good a time as any to really think about the leaders that we put to power.
Yes.
Because only then then and only then can we get a solution, a lasting solution. So let's really vet our leaders, let's hear their manifestos, and let's ask about the issues that are very central to our survival,
Yes.
that are central to our existence.
Yes, you're seeing exactly how the political leaders are moving around right now, trying to sort of route their way into this political seat in 2022. Have you had that being the agenda really, Edith, from what you're saying this morning?
You know, it is, it's quite sad that food security was one of the big four agenda.
Yes.
And within of this regime, we have had drought being declared a
That's
national
it.
disaster.
And they did promise by 2022 that the country will be food secure.
That should really tell us where we need to ask the questions. Let's
Yes.
not just welcome manifestos and not hold these leaders to account. Let's keep them accountable. Let's participate in public participation forums. Let us ask the leaders at local level, at national level, to really be accountable for all the promises that they make to us during the electioneering years. And you know, at local level, the power is really with the people. They have the power to lay out the entire county development plan.
Yes.
And so let us show up in large numbers and let us try as best as possible to make our voices heard.
Yes.
Because the power really, it lies with the people.
Isn't it? But does it also now mean that unless we see more than 4% of the national budget actually spent on agriculture, that's the only time that even this development agenda that we're talking about this for the government that will lead us into 2030 is going to come into fruition? Is that what it means, Edith?
It does.
Yes.
Because that's the only way to measure government's commitment
Yes.
to what it says it will do, right?
Yes.
And so if it says that by this year, no Kenyan shall die of hunger, and we allocate 4%, it does not add up.
It's a big disconnect, isn't
Yes.
it? All right. So right now, somebody want to ask you, Edith, from a very basic perspective, because we're talking about food, we're talking about food shortage in the country and hunger. There could be something that we could be looking at. What could be the alternatives to solving our problems right now, step by step, on a smaller scale level, as we look forward to 2030, Edith?
You know, there are many little steps that we could take.
Yes.
First of all is really to look at our food systems. And when I speak about food systems, it's just really how to, the entire web of how food travels from where it's produced to where, you know, to the consumer, right?
That's it. And Edith, I'm sorry to cut you short again, because I think you're mentioning a very important point.
Yeah.
Should we also move away from the production-centric industrial agriculture? Is a country lying to itself that indeed we have the capacity to also count ourselves as one of the industrial capable countries when it comes to agriculture before we are able to sustain the local demand? Is that what we should be moving away from, Edith?
Let's move to farmer-centric.
Yes.
Yes, and
Yes.
let's measure that it works.
Yes.
Yeah, because if we are saying that the majority of the farmers that feed this nation are small-scale farmers, and there's just a very limited percentage that are called the large-scale farmers,
Yes.
then let us shift our focus from the large-scale farmers to the small-scale farmers and measure the results.
Yes.
And should this solve the problem, that's the way to go.
Yes.
Because all of these, policies and plans, they need to have a way for evidence to be monitored out of them. And so let data speak.
Yes.
Yes.
Pretty much. This is a direct question that I got from one of our viewers who knew exactly that we're going to have this conversation this morning. They asked me to ask you this question. Agriculture in the country right now. They said, well, we could be producing enough to sustain our local demand, even export. But then they told me, Simba, can you go ask Edith why up to now we're talking about importation of onions into the country, we're talking about importation of cabbage into the country, tomatoes, we're talking about potatoes into the country, and they're saying, is that also what is taken away majority of Kenyans who could be in this lucrative market, but then they say, well, cheaper ones are going to come in. So indeed, you find that we are in a shortfall, which we could be if the focus was put on the local farmer first.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And you know, the viewer, bless them where they are.
Yes.
I think they have hit the nail on the head.
Yes.
Because it's quite sad that major cities in this country cannot survive without imports. That if our borders were closed one day for one reason or the other, Nairobi would go hungry.
Yes.
It's pretty sad. And so that shows us to shift the focus. Let's look internal. Is it that we cannot produce onions in this country? I think not. Is it that we cannot produce tomatoes in this country? Is it that we do not have enough rice produced in this country? I think not. But the imports affect the food prices, which then demoralizes the farmer who's struggling so hard to produce some food. So let's support the farmers. Let's ensure that they have some money in their pockets such that they can produce quality food that can even match or compete with the quality of the imports that we are trying to bring into this
Yes.
country. Yeah.
Edith, as we clear this conversation this morning, yes, the future looks bleak. I mean, from what you're saying this morning, you're saying, well, there's a bigger disconnect. We have not given incentive even to the local farmer to produce and feed the local population. Okay. But is there a gleam of hope from what you're saying this morning? Because it looks as if we're at the dead end from this speaking this morning.
There is always some hope.
Yes.
You know, if we lose hope, we lose everything. And I would say one of the first places to come is the Root to Food Alliance. Check the website. There's so much information, good research that can inform good policy in this country. Let us rally together and ensure that this human right to food is achieved in this nation.
Yes.
It's possible. It is possible.
It is possible.
Yeah.
And that's how we end it. Edith Kimani, thank you very much for taking your time this morning to speak to Metropole Television.
Thank you for having me.
Fantastic. Now, according to Edith, it's possible, but then it has to start with some sort of deliberate move from the government and you and I. That's what she's saying. Rally for 2022. Make sure it's the policies and manifestos that you're running on, indeed, if you're going to fight this hunger situation in the country. Do you think it's possible? Well, talk to us at Metropole TVKE across your social media platforms. Should you also want to know what the Route to Food are doing as well, you don't know exactly what to do, talk to us as well. We shall be getting back to you or taking you back to where they are so you know exactly what it is they're trying to achieve in the economy as well. My name is Simba Elijah Charles. Can I give you take a short break? Once we come back, more Sector Trends this morning.